It's a big episode.
Everyone knows.
A lot of emotion.
All this stuff already happened. So,
but here's what's amazing about it is that I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy. I just never have been. And I think conspiracy theorists are people that are not as successful as they think they should be. Society's let them down. And so they come up with information they believe is special information only they know. I've got this, people are telling me this because it's attention seekers. And conspiracy theories around Michael Jordan that his father passed away in the summer and then in October he quit. And there's been this, ridiculous theory that Michael Jordan's gambling is the reason that his father was murdered in the summer. And then 3 months later, Michael Jordan basically, not even that, he just retired, like early October. He said, I'm out. Well, first of all, Michael Jordan had begun training for baseball 9 months before that. He had also told his trainer, Tim Grover, acknowledges Michael was already into the baseball training stuff. He had told Tim Grover, who's an accredited, respected trainer. Secondly, there's a journalist in episode 7, and I'll let you watch it, who says Jordan had told him like a year and a half earlier, I'm going to quit pretty soon. I want to play baseball. It's my dad's love, and I want to play baseball. And so Jordan had told a writer, it's just, I got to win 3 straight because Magic and Bird didn't. So you have all these legitimate sources, and then David Stern laughed at it. He's like, forcing him to, what? Michael Jordan was the face of the league. What? So one of the reasons I stopped taking calls on this show, people have a position, and if I give you facts and information, they have no interest. So I'd rather bring on accredited journalists or athletes or somebody you can have a grown-up conversation with. The idea that any of these conspiracy theories have lasted, it's been denied by everybody. It doesn't make any sense. You got Michael Jordan training for baseball way in advance of that. Way before the murder of his father. It's like there's just a percentage of people, they don't want to learn, they're incurious, they want to feel important, they have a goofy theory that people just roll their eyes at. Everybody just sort of, the late David Stern just like, no, that's not what happened. The NBA, frankly, was not as good when Michael left the first time, and it was not as good when Michael left the second time. He was that spectacular. So watch episode 7. It's very emotional. I'm not giving away anything, but it's worth your time. It's really terrific and really sad. And there's just a lot of stuff, and they just jammed a lot. Remember Jason Hare I interviewed a couple weeks ago on my podcast, and I asked him, what's your favorite episode? And he said episode 7. So it is packed full. It is absolutely packed full. And I think you'll like it. Brandon Marshall is going to be joining us pretty quickly here. Longtime NFL receiver. NFL schedules come out tonight. Now, I am going to release, so I release schedules after, I always say, Joy, I think grading drafts is stupid because who knows after the second draft pick if guys can play. Right. So what I do is I wait for coaching changes after the season, then free agency, and then the draft. And then I say, here's what I think the standings will be. And then we watch the schedules and we watch injuries and we give you, more standings we predict. And so I will today give you all the new coaches, all the free agents, and all the draft picks. Here's my prediction on the standings. And then in a couple of weeks, we'll look at, here's the schedules, and that'll, I won't change it drastically, but I do think schedules can matter, especially new coach, new system, new quarterback. Cincinnati could be very interesting. The New York Giants could be very interesting. Well, he played 13 years in the NFL, and half the time, 6 times he was a Pro Bowler. Has great broadcasting talent and chops as well. Always one of my favorite guys. He has a podcast out there. I Am an Athlete, an athlete's raw, uncensored take on professional sports podcast. And he had Roger Goodell as a guest. It's interesting, Brandon, I've always loved having you on the show. Roger Goodell gets a lot of crap. But all I know is this, Brandon. Since he's taken over the league's more popular. It makes more money. He's had to deal with Colin Kaepernick situations, domestic violence situations. He's had to deal with the coronavirus. And every time I think to myself, boy, he's a good leader. Do you think, now when you interviewed him, did it change your perception of him pre-interview and post-interview?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm with you. I'm with you on that point that he is a good leader. But rightfully so, he should be getting his ass kicked when it comes to, the public perception. Because he hasn't done a good job of showing who he is. Like, this is the Roger Goodell that I know. The one who jumps on my podcast and he hasn't shaved. He's in his, his man cave. This is what he should show. What he did for the draft, I think, was genius, and I think, took him to a whole nother level. Embracing the booze, just dressing it down. And I hit him up after the draft, and I said, you need to continue this. This is one of the best moves you've ever made. Because when you see Roger Goodell, you always see him buttoned up. You don't see him talking about culture. You don't see him doing other things. Because he is one of the best leaders I've ever been around. But now when you see him in this light, you see him, where it's relatable. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I thought the draft was a home run. I thought it was very family-oriented, very human. I got to see players with their families. I loved it. I thought it was, I'm not saying it's better or worse than the previous stuff, but I love seeing the families. Now,
it was great.
I got to throw this at you because you're an honest guy. So Jay Cutler got divorced, and I feel bad for Jay Cutler. He got divorced.
Yeah.
Christine Cavallari's beautiful and smart and ambitious, and, they'll both find new love, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But Jay Cutler always had a reputation, and I know a buddy of mine's good friends with him, is really, really difficult. What you played with Jay, the Jay was he difficult?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I'm surprised. Me and Jay, our marriages lasted this long. Like we're both difficult. That's why we didn't win the Super Bowl together, because we couldn't just bring it all together. But that's his personal business. I wish them well. I've been around both of them a lot. They're both amazing people. But yes, Jay Cutler is difficult. For me, it's like when you get older, you learn, right? So there's a lot of things that you have to learn to love. It's not just love is different. Love, is ever changing when you're doing it with someone else. And I think, for everyone out there, especially men, alpha males, guys in our position, you have to humble yourself and just do everything you can to just make that sacrifice daily. And I think that's where I've learned to get better. A lot of work to do. So hopefully we all can learn from this.
Yeah, and I wish Jay the best, too. I was talking more about his career. People have said this about Aaron Rodgers. They've said Aaron's great, but Aaron can be prickly. Aaron can be difficult as a quarterback. When you played with Jay as a player, not the personal stuff, did you find him off-putting at times?
Yeah, I think that's. I think we've talked about that a bunch. Jay is Jay.
What's that mean?
To get right, and that's what makes him loved in the locker room, and that's also what where guys push back in the locker room with Jay is because it's either you love him or you hate him.
Yeah, Brandon Marshall's joining me. He's got a new podcast out. So if you look at recent NFL history, and you should be an expert at this, where you go in the draft helps a lot. If you go to a dysfunctional organization, a Cleveland or a Cincinnati or a Miami, it's much tougher to succeed. So you played with some really well-run organizations. Seahawks, Broncos are well-run organizations. Then you played for the Jets. Now, you did have a great year or two in New York. You had one great year.
Hold on, so you're saying the Jets aren't well-run?
Well, here's a prime example. I think Sam Darnold's great, but I think he's constantly having to overcome the Jets, their O-line, a bad GM who got fired, a new GM. I think Joe Burrow's going to struggle in Cincinnati. I don't like the owner. I think the division's tough. I don't like their roster. They don't win enough. Take me to your career, Brandon. Did you notice big differences, a Seattle to a Jets or a Giants, or a Denver to a Miami?
Yeah. So when I realized it was when I was traded from the Denver Broncos to the Miami Dolphins. Denver Broncos, I was young. I was dumb. I didn't understand, what being a pro was. I didn't understand what I had. I didn't appreciate what I had. When I got to Miami, oh, my gosh. When I talk about terrible, we were good in the locker room. I mean, you think about this, the Miami Dolphins. I was sitting in the office with Coach Sperano when Jeff Ireland and the owner was in Michigan or wherever they were in Stanford interviewing Harbaugh. And we're watching ESPN, and I'm seeing this look on Coach's face like, oh, my gosh, is this really happening? How does that happen at that level? So when you look at the Denver Broncos, we didn't win in those 4 years. We didn't win a Super Bowl. But they end up winning. Why? Because they are well-run. Joe Ellis, the team there, Joe Elway, they did a phenomenal job. The Miami Dolphins, why haven't they turned it around yet? I think Mr. Ross is passionate about success, but I don't think he's a football guy, and I think he has a